What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
At the beginning of 2000 years, Hyundai still actively used licenses of Mitsubishi Company, which was expressed in the use of both platforms and motors related to Japanese. If you look closely at the Accent family, it becomes clear that the LC or LC2 generation is a reincarnation of the very successful Mitsubishi Colt Lancer CA CB CC family of 1991. They have the same wheelbase of 2,440 mm, similar suspensions, and very similar motors. It is enough to open the hood and look at the power structure of the front. The cups are interchangeable, absolutely the same device, and with the same plate amplifier from above. And Accent WRC had the famous 4G63T in Korean version under the hood. However, the rear suspension of the cars is different. Hyundai used a lightweight suspension with McPherson strut at the rear, while heavier Lancer had a full-fledged multi-lever or suspension with a torsion beam. However, Hyundai Getz, which is a co-platform with Accent, also received a torsion beam at the rear. The Accent has a fully steel body, 3-4 or 5-door, but the wheelbase of all variants is the same 2,440 mm. Suspensions at the front and rear are independent, of McPherson type. Drive is only front. The arrangement of units, row and line. The main part of motors, gasoline units of Alpha family, 12 valves HC for 1.3 and 1.5 litres and 16 valve HC for 1.5 and 1.6 litres. But in Europe was available and 3-cylinder diesel engine for 1.5 litres RA325 series jointly developed with VM Motori. Transmissions are either 5-speed automatic transmission or 4-speed automatic transmission of own production on the basis of Mitsubishi patents. Chronology. November 1999. The second generation of Hyundai Accent model is released. The body received LC designation. The range of bodies includes 4-door sedan, 3-door hatchback, and 5-door hatchback. Motors are the 1.3 series G4 EH 84 horsepower gasoline, 1.5 series G4 EK 87 horsepower, and 1.5 series G4 EC 102 horsepower. The 1.5-litre motors could be equipped with an automatic transmission, but the base gearbox was a 5-speed manual. Air conditioning is an option for packages above the minimum. ABS is an option for all markets, except for Europe and the USA. The cars are produced not only in Korea. Almost immediately the production is deployed in Turkey, India, Indonesia, and Egypt. April 2001. The first Accent of Russian assembly is produced in Taganrog, at TAG AZ plant. The engine is 1.5 litre with 102 horsepower. The body is a sedan only. February 2002. Restyling of the model. It includes changes in appearance, modernization of engines to comply with -4 Euro standard, and improvement of interior. The version, assembled at Tagaz, has no changes in appearance, but the engine lineup, electrics, and interior have been partially updated. Summer 2002. Tagaz started to assemble cars with automatic transmission. February 2003. The 1.5 engine was replaced by the 1.6 series G4 ED engine with an output of 103 horsepower in the US and European markets. March 2005. The next generation of the model, better known in Russia as Hyundai Verna, was presented. The car was presented here under the Korean name, so as not to interfere with sales of cars of Taganrog assembly. 2011. Production of the model at Tagaz is curtailed. 2019. Production of the model in India is curtailed. Body. Exterior panels. Considering the age and class of the car, it is difficult to expect something supernatural from it. Cars manufactured before 2007 from Moscow and St. Petersburg, and moreover, with the price up to 350,000 should be checked only for the presence of through holes, painting with a roller, and traces of sculptor's work on putty. Well, and traces of serious accidents also should be searched. If someone took for restoration of a budget automobile, it is unlikely to do it qualitatively. It is possible to be picky when buying a car in southern regions and in a higher price category. However, announcements about sale of Accent for 700 to 800,000, and even 1 million rubles even on the modern secondary market clearly give madness. So the majority of buyers are interested in options in the problem price category, where you need to find a pearl. Absolutely everything in the car rots. It is clear that the sills and door bottoms, as well as the edges of the wheel arches, are the places where corrosion first of all creates holes. For a budget model up to 2008 year of release, it is even expected. Windshield leaks due to a rotten frame, kind of a typical trouble, old Opel and Mercedes-C BMW have already accustomed masters to. Look for this kind of trouble. But the hole from the front wheel arch into the cabin can already be considered an interesting surprise. As well as, for example, holes under the rear seat or falling out flaws. Though rare, it happens if the owner ignores corrosion for many years. In general, you have to look at everything and carefully, looking for global problems, not trivial traces of repainting or hidden corrosion. If the car does not have serious visible problems even with the doors and arches, it is already a good option for purchase, of course, if the price is not prohibitive. But it's definitely worth a look underneath. Underneath, most of the problems on the underside can be seen without an elevator. The sills are exposed and have thin metal on the outside. So if the car has already started to rot, in most cases this will be visible immediately. Checking with a hoist is a serious test. It is good if the jack stands are intact. In the cheapest cars, the elevator legs often wind up under the whole iron spars, as the sill rots away together with the vertical stiffener, box stiffener, and pieces of the floor. To the Accent's credit, the rear spars and the arches are often still quite alive, the metal is quite thick, and the sill is welded very easily. Its inner main stiffener is vertical and solid. The box stiffener is tied only to the top edge and bottom joint with the vertical stiffener. That said, the rear body pockets under the bumper can be intact even on very rotten cars. Another problem area is the rear inner arch. Up to some point it can be re-welded in parts, but most owners end up rotting the entire arch, and the suspension strut falls into the passenger compartment. First of all, the area on the passenger compartment side and the upper joint with the outer arch suffer. Later, the thicker metal at the top of the suspension strut mount starts to rot. I strongly do not recommend to buy a car which already has patches in the arch or screwed to the screwed stiffener. There are such. There are repaired arches, but the total price of the operation is not compatible with common sense against the price of the car. On the other hand, corrosion of the outer arch is not so bad. Repair arches are available, as well as repair sill panels. Corrosion of the underbody panels is moderate. You should mainly be wary of corrosion on the inside, as the interior leaks in many places, even if the arches have not yet rotted. Through and the windshield frame is intact. For example, the door seals are of poor quality, and when washing under high pressure, the interior can be flooded. From below, the corrosion of the bottom shows itself mainly around the drain plugs and in the rear part, at the attachment of the rear suspension arms, above the fuel tank and, of course, at the spare wheel niche. And pay attention to the gas tank itself. In cars of our assembly it is definitely plastic, but American cars of early production can have a steel one, with all the consequences that follow in the literal and figurative sense. The floor of the passenger compartment and trunk should also be checked in the best possible way. If there is no time or opportunity to remove the side covers and lift the floor carpet, then pay attention to the condition of the seat rails and their fasteners, as well as the pedal brackets. Corrosion on them clearly hints at what awaits you under the carpet. The front arches have the same trouble as the rear ones. The seam rots from the passenger compartment side, and a hole opens into the passenger compartment. The pocket of the front fender simply rots away with time, forming a hole in the sill, and the front part of the headlight also gradually corrodes. The fender itself rots from the inside along the edge and at the junction with the sill. Otherwise, the front arches are not bad. Be sure to inspect the seams in the engine compartment. The joint of the posts and the upper reinforcement of the spar, all the seams of the cups themselves and especially their upper part in the area of the rack attachment, all this rots easily and easily. The front panel is also actively rusting. The corrosion processes of panels made of 2 layers of metal are quite complex and clearly depend on some factors that are not well accounted for. For example, many outwardly half-dead cars have fewer problems in this area than those that haven't seen snow. Could it be a matter of trivial oil buildup? Or an additional antica made at some point? In general, maximum meticulousness, a good flashlight and a brush will not hurt. Body equipment Accent of this generation is an almost perfect example of why you don't need to buy an aging car from the most budget segment. All elements are made not just cheaply, but as cheaply as possible. Door locks please with a dozen different problems. wedge of the lock itself, wedge of the handle, rattling, and so on. By the way, the central lock on the cars of Korean production till 2003 was an option. Headlights are terrible. They shine badly, burn out, and their case is weak. The trunk opening mechanism clinks, the hinges of the gas tank hatch squeak, headlights rub the body because of ill-conceived fasteners. Hinges require constant lubrication, and door stops on many cars do not work for many years. You can be almost certain that the bumpers will be kept honest, and their gaps will not be exposed even on unbeaten copies. The only thing that saves the car from more flaws is that it usually even has manual power windows and mirrors and no extra options. So there is simply nothing to break either. If there are electric windows, they are likely to break with good probability. Their drive is rarely unsuccessful. Interior. Budget grey-black interior straight from the 90s is at your service. In all probability, the seats are already saturated, seat belts are oaky, all handles are loose, and the steering wheel is scuffed. However, it is difficult to break something globally. The main troubles are weak door handles and loose door trim. With minimal care, it is possible to make it look good, but not every owner is ready to spend on minor repairs and dry cleaning. Usually it is done by resellers. Broken sun visors and interior handles, backlashes and paddles, stripped gearbox lever. It is rather a consequence of attitude to the car, but constructively they are also executed too cheaply. In theory, all elements can be replaced, and everything is not too expensive. Dashboard displays, the panel itself, deflectors, all this is sold non-original for a small amount of money, but only a small part of owners bring the interior in perfect order. Here, as well as with a body, the rule speed is not affected is valid. But ergonomics of the salon, by the way, is not so bad as it could seem. The climate system is generally simple. Mostly the fan motor fails, but in older cars the heater radiator also fails, as it becomes clogged with deposits. Breakages of rods and handles happen, but usually do not represent a problem. And the air conditioner, which is not found in every car, is rarely fully serviceable. Electrics. Strange as it may seem, electrics are not included in the list of Accent's problems. Although, for example, the wiring to the injectors is already crumbling, as well as the wiring to the DPKV. Due to the simplicity of the electrical scheme, local failures usually do not lead to difficult diagnosable troubles, and everything is easily repaired by an electrician of average hand. The quality of wiring is surprisingly good for such a budget car, well, or there are simply too few wires. Accent in our country is mainly represented by cars of Taganrog assembly, and in sales you can still find copies with low mileage, in a condition from very good to like new, albeit for very illogical money. But only is it worth buying them if the design itself is about to turn 30 years old, and this car, being new, was already not only budget, but also quite outdated? The answer to this question is different for everyone. You just need to understand the typical features of budget models. And judging by all, those who are ready to answer positively, so far there are enough, because more than a half of the market on Accent are cars with the price above 400,000 rubles. Maybe suspensions, motors and gearboxes can explain such people's love? This we will find out in the second part of the material about the second-generation Hyundai Accent. In conclusion, the Hyundai Accent II, LC, presents a unique case with its notable mileage and the intriguing issue of a hole from the arch to the saloon. While this may raise concerns about the vehicle's integrity, it's essential to remember that the electrics are designed to be robust, minimizing potential breakdowns. For those considering this model, it's crucial to weigh the pros and cons carefully. With proper maintenance and attention to the structural concerns, the Accent II can still offer reliable performance. Thank you for watching, and we hope this insight helps you make an informed decision about this classic vehicle.